Oh, hey, it's Charlie Weingroff.
I don't know how long I'll be able to be out here if the thunder is too loud.
Oh, well, I'm sorry I sent you outside.
Well, I think it was for the best.
What's going on?
Somebody said you look great, but I don't know if they're talking to me or you. So I'm pretty sure they're not talking to me. So it's
I mean, you do look really nice with the palm tree behind you. I don't know who it was. There's a lot of people signing on.
yeah. I don't know why they want to hear you talk. They're tired of me.
No, I think they're tired of me. They want to hear what this great debate is. What's going on? I haven't seen you in so long.
Yeah, it's been like 3 minutes.
I heard you're getting married soon.
No shit.
So when's the big day? What's going? Oh my God.
uh,
I just want to let people roll on. So your thing's doing this. You're gonna make people drunk if they're drinking watching this.
I want. All right, so I basically can't touch the table then because I'm not
Hey,
doing.
Alvin.
I'm not doing that.
No, it could be your thing.
I don't. I don't. I don't know
My
what's going on. I see it.
Michael is saying thanks for doing this. Look forward to
Oh,
perform better
it was
Thursdays.
it was the light that I took the light off. So I'll
Ah,
I'll put it on when it's necessary.
yeah, that's
Or
much better.
yeah, that's what it was. I guess the vibration from the light was messing with the Osmo.
I didn't think that you were the one of the two of us who liked things that vibrate.
Anyway, I'm not commenting. Mitch, no, Mitch, we tried to do it in the same room, but it's a delay and
Yeah.
echo. So it's awful. It's awful.
And he might mean too, like being together in the same thing. So we considered doing that, being right next to each other just on my page, but then people wouldn't see that he was live as well. So it creates, the algorithm and the engagement and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Hi, Brian. Brian Bot's waving hello. He's like our star prodigy right now.
Yeah, like he put a post on understanding maximal aerobic speed, of which I am not enormously have a tremendous amount of reps in, but he's doing it a very traditional way, and it's meant to show you when you're right around 80 to 85% max, and you're largely using aerobic systems, you're still into something.
We'll definitely have to dig into that. So I think we've got a good amount of people. We're holding steady, like 28, 30 people. So I think some more will roll on as we progress. But thank you guys for all who have joined us. As you know, this is something I've mentioned here and there on my Instagram stories about wanting to do with Charlie, because if you've ever heard him speak, he is one of the most intelligent people. I'm not just saying this because, I live with him and stuff, but and extremely eloquent when it comes to training for performance and understanding some of the advanced techniques, but is able to simplify everything. And one of those, something that has been, oh my gosh, is that the thunder?
Yeah, I'll come inside if I have to, but if it's going to be that loud.
No, it's okay. I mean, once we start going, if I don't think people can hear you, or if they comment that they can't hear you, then we can figure
Well,
something
I
out.
I, I don't think anyone's ever said I don't talk loud enough. So
No,
maybe.
that's another reason why you're outside. It's because of how loud you are. Because we have to be somewhere in the house where we're not going to be near each other in the same room. So, um, but anyway, so I think that the topic of cardio, and I say it in quotes because I think the definition of it is so misunderstood, or people use it as a blanket term for many different modalities in their training, that I think it warrants some sort of explanation as to what counts as traditional cardio in what somebody's personal context is, but also what is the difference between lifting weights faster, as people have said, or maybe utilizing lighter loads to implement in their training to sort of provoke what they deem a cardio response. So I think the best way to start the conversation is to actually define what cardio is. So, what would you say the definition or the multiple definitions of cardiorespiratory fitness is?
Well, I think before we say that, obviously we have discussed this and rehearsed this to some degree. The first thing is that whatever I say is what I think, and it's not terribly important to me if someone has a different definition. Um,
In
so
case you
so
haven't ever heard him talk.
no, but that's important because just because I'm going to answer the question and explain what I explain, and if people want to test it, these messages on their own, which they should. No one should ever just randomly just do something because someone says it. The problem is that if your other choice of reputable messenger has a different definition, whether it's right or wrong, it's going to make it very, very confusing. So for as long as we do this, like I'm basing everything off of my definitions,
Mm-hmm.
which I think are correct, and that's just what it is. So
Well, no, I think also too, I can identify when some alternative definitions may be not conflicting, but maybe some people understand a different way of explaining it. Because a lot of the times you do explain things the same way other people understand it, just using different words. So it might just be a thing of coming down to semantics, really.
that's it, because I think the question that you're really after, ha the activity has high value and high return, um, but it's not for the correct reason. And in fact, there's a good reason why that thought process of lifting weights and identifying a high heart rate that is often also associated with other effects can be a very dangerous thing in the long term. So I'm not suggesting anyone's going to die from lifting weights at a high heart rate, because I'm sure that's not possible to do that. Well, it's all just definition. So
Yeah.
where did what was this question? I when I moved closer, I kind of moved out. I closed down what people are saying. So what's that one person say?
Um, JD's
What does
asking, what does carrying a bag for 18 holes mean? And what is an increased heart rate golfing, even when riding a cart, considered in terms of cardio? So I think that goes back to
yeah, likely
starting
nothing. Yeah.
start off with defining what is cardio and what
All right.
the various definitions can mean to people listening to this, meaning
Yes.
coaches and both
Okay.
general pop.
Okay. You can take all right, put lifting weights or carrying or moving something heavy, all very important things. Put that in your back pocket, okay? That has nothing to do with anything right now. We'll bring it back into the conversation. But like this, whoever they asked about carrying a bag for 18 holes, that's something. But you could also accomplish that same something without the bag. Uh, you can so just put lifting weights, on a different table right now. So I'm going to define cardio in one of two ways. Basically, let's just say central and peripheral. Okay, so training process, conditioning. You're going to apply a strategy that is within a particular range, that if you do it that way long enough, you become able to do more. That's the whole idea of training. So you can apply those processes to the heart and lungs. That's the central part of cardio. You're probably also going to include the blood vessels in that area that we know are very, very important so you don't die. The coronary arteries, the aorta, the vena cava. The names are not as important as the ones that are really close to the heart. Okay, the ones that are really close to the lungs. There's a series of events that you can expose your body to, so that your heart doesn't have to work as hard under similar conditions the next time, or the heart will work very efficiently in extremely high loads of those models. That's the central stuff. Then there's also, I think it's very fair to communicate on cardio from a peripheral standpoint, because there's like, once the blood gets out of the heart and the blood has the stuff that makes muscles keep moving or move really hard or move really fast, the blood carries it all around the body. So once you punch, with the heart, once the stuff it has to get out of the blood into muscles and other cells that are in the arms and legs and your face and your feet and your fingers, et cetera, et cetera. That is other protocols that may or may not require weightlifting to use. So cardio is a series of training events that affect either your heart and lungs or the muscle cells, because muscle cells, we know, can work with oxygen, and muscle cells always work with everything, but sometimes they can work primarily without oxygen, and they won't work very long without oxygen. But if they do have oxygen, which has to come from the heart and the lungs, then they can work for a very long time, except they really can't do a lot of heavy work or a lot of explosive work. So there's a lot of little branches off of cardio, but there's two main branches. You're going to do something for cardio that affects your heart and lungs, or you're going to affect how well the muscles utilize the components of the blood once it gets there. Is that cool?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you
Right.
for defining it. And
are we done? Like, we're good?
okay, have a good night. No. If you were here, I would shake your hand like I do when I say hello to you, even
Yeah.
though. Chuck, yes, we're in the same house now, but we couldn't be in the same room because of an echo. So I know a lot of the reason a lot of the coaches are signed on here is, I have always admitted in my talks, I would say, in around like the 2010 era or whatever, when high intensity interval training became very popular, a lot of us got on the bandwagon saying that, oh, well, we don't need cardio, we can just lift. And all the adaptation that you need can be obtained from strictly doing high intensity work or lifting weights, or you can lift weights with minimal rest periods and still get that cardio effect. And we were taught to think that traditional low threshold, steady state aerobic training would make us fat and weak and slow. And I would say, with understanding some of the work from Pavel, from you, from the Muscle Nerds education, we've learned the importance of being aerobically fit to be able to withstand that type of training that I was talking about with the higher intensity. So I think that that's created almost like a divide in the industry, where many coaches think that people can get away with just doing high intensity or substituting their type of weight training for cardio. What do you think that people mean when they say that I don't need to do cardio, I just lift weights quickly or
Yeah.
low load and stuff?
Well, oh man, it's so hard to. And I'm not even trying to be nice here. Trust me. Because basically, the messages that you have described have a lot of holes in them. They're not that the way you said it, which I know is how other people say it, is very easy to disseminate. I'm just not sure where to start, because there's a lot of things that should be explained first before we describe how silly and incorrect those messages are. Let's start off with what is correct. There is research that would suggest that if you do something in a particular way very, very intensely, you can also achieve some of the changes that can happen by you do something not intense for a very long time. The first research that became very, very popular, and I presented at a conference with him long time ago in Okanagan, Martin Gibala, Gibala, began this thought process that fueled the messages that you're talking about, where you would basically do a lot of high intense work. And if you measured the suggested value of what you would get from low intensity, you got it from the high intensity. However, these were very isolated events, and these were also people that already had a significantly, a very developed aerobic system to begin with. So it's interesting. It's good to talk. It's not the free pass you get to say
Right.
those ridiculous things. That's number one. Number two, if you are doing anything, you are always using some combination of all different energy systems. For instance, if we're talking about using creatine phosphate as a primary energy source, you still need oxygen to put back, to recover from the separation of the creatine and the phosphorylation process. So you always need oxygen. And even when you're doing something for a very, very, very long time, where you think you're primarily using the aerobic systems, which you are, you're still going to use some of the glycolytic systems. So everything is everything at all times. The moment you stop and start an activity in any form of interval fashion, you now have to communicate those two different activities when you describe what you're doing. So unless you're doing something continuously straight, you have to say this is glycolytic colon aerobic, or this is oxidative phosphorylation slash something else. Like you can't say it's both. I'm sorry, you can't say it's just one if you're stopping and starting. So for instance, if I do explosive overspeed kettlebell swings for 10 repetitions, I am primarily using a very particular energy system. And if that's all I'm communicating and I just do 10 swings and I go home, yeah, I'm going to say I primarily used 10 swings is going to take you like 12 seconds maximum. You're probably, maybe you got into some very, very early stages of some of the glycolytic energy systems. But now if you rest and do another 10, when you rest, you are using primarily aerobic systems. So the value of doing your next 10 reps is how developed your aerobic system is during whatever period of time that you chose to rest. If you rest a very, very short period of time, what you should be asking the question, was that enough time for the aerobic system to give me what I require in the central and in the peripheral, so that my next 10 swings were just as devastating and ruthless as my first 10? Or do you not care? That's okay. You're allowed to not care, because I think the best way to try to communicate these ideas, I'm always going to take both sides. I will give the answers. Like I'm going to say what the other person would probably say. Well, I don't care. Why? I'm allowed to do 10 swings. I don't have to do them all like really as hard as I can. Okay. That would violate a very important rule for me of efficiency, particularly if you're trying to do them as hard as you can and can't. Now, if you do 10 swings medium, clearly the degree of aerobic excellence you require won't be as much, but you're also not going to get as much out of those medium swings versus the 100% ruthless swings. So there's so much to communicate and talk about in context. Now, here's the thing. Kettlebell swings is an interesting choice, because is that what someone else would call cardio, or is that lifting because you are moving this somewhat heavy, depending how heavy you go, external load? Well, your heart rate is probably not going to go up that high because you're only doing 10. So let's say you're going to do 50 swings, which many people do. And I think most people agree that if you do 50 swings, each swing will not be as full power as if you only did 10 or 5. I mean, you can't like stop. Like, yeah, if you are meant to do 50 and you did the first 10 the same that you would do your only 10, you're going to drop down significantly, which is again, as long as your form is safe, whatever. I mean, that still violates something that's very important to me in training all people, athletes or general population. Your effort should always equal your output. And there's a lot of other reasons for that maybe we'll get to. But we got to get.
This is 50 swings in a row, not 50 divided by
Yeah,
5
yeah,
or
yeah,
10.
yeah. So because if you're doing 50 swings long enough, however long that takes is going to take maybe a minute. Yeah, let's say it may not take everybody a minute. It might take people less than 50 seconds. Now that's your heart rate has more time to go up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if you did a kettlebell swing? We know the kettlebell snatch test is 5 minutes. Well, you're allowed to take 4 minutes and 59 seconds. That's a very respectable mile time. So you are primarily using the aerobic system, and you are lifting weights. You win. Like you did it right. But if you're doing Olympic lifts or traditional strength training, not power endurance training, which is, I mean, a made up kind of word. I don't know that it's a real thing, but it's not offensive. Your heart rate goes huge. You do like a max effort squat, your heart rate might be like 220 or something. And so like, oh, look, my heart rate got so high. That's cardio. I think that's the message you're talking about.
Yes,
And
often
that,
you'll see people post that where they'd say, I don't need to do cardio. I just did
yeah. Well,
6 squats and my heart rate went up.
well, if you did 6 squats, let's say that takes 10 seconds. That is not enough time for you to be exposed to that high heart rate under any circumstances, much less these inflated circumstances of significant load carriage and heavy lifting. So let's talk about that. When you get in your car and drive to your little gym that has all these fake bumper plates so you can put 25s on the bar and think that you're lifting big wheels, the moment you start driving to the gym, your heart rate is going up right away. So the intended activity, your body is already developing a cholinergic response and people love to say like sympathetic drive. It's whatever that means. All of the above. Like you're getting ready to go. You're getting ready to rock. And your heart rate is going up. Now, because your body, your brain knows that is about to go down. So your heart rate is right now, my heart rate is going up just thinking about this. But this is a highly costly process of which cortisol is often involved. Norepinephrine and epinephrine are involved. Glucocorticoids can be involved because your heart rate is going up to start pushing blood out because your brain and your body knows your arms and legs are going to need it. But there's a high cost of that. So you show up to the gym and your heart is already 84, 83, et cetera. But you did not get this value of this heart rate from something that you can benefit from. This was something you paid for. This was a costly process because now all of those things come to roost. They're going to let you open the gates to bring the heat, but then you have to pay for all those adrenergic and cholinergic responses. Like you can't, like there's some things that it requires time to recover. If you don't recover, that certainly links to the genesis of changes in motor control and changes in soft tissue secondary to local exposure to acidosis. That's why effort and output is very, very important, so you don't lead to injuries. When people's effort doesn't equate their output, you're going to break down. I mean, that's over time. Everyone has a shelf life based on their aerobic system. So that's one reason that your heart rate from lifting doesn't count. This is all right. The other reason is that when you start to contract your muscles to hold something, whether it's on your back or in your hands or, while you're in a machine and you're doing leg extensions or something, you're contracting, and the vessels that traverse all of these muscles are now undergoing larger resistance because they're being crimped and the blood still has to shoot through. So as a result of increased total peripheral resistance, your blood pressure goes up and your heart rate goes up as a cost for doing this strength training, which is crucial, whether you're trying to get strong for an athletic endeavor or you're just looking to improve lean muscle mass for the general population. You absolutely need to be lifting heavy things and putting them back down. But now you're going to now go to work with this heavy load and your heart rate spikes under this highly sympathetic condition, under this condition of total peripheral resistance, both of which cost a lot. And you referenced 6 reps. How long? You're not in any parameter that positively impacts the central system from either a value of the left ventricle undergoing an eccentric load or even a concentric load, because you're not doing it long enough, okay? So let's talk about that. The central mechanisms, there's probably 3 values, but 2 are very, very easy to appreciate. When you want more blood to get to the body, it goes through the atria and the ventricle, and it shoots out the left ventricle. So that's the part of the heart. It's the last little chamber, and that has got the most juice to punch out the heart, okay? So when you have a very, very high heart rate, it punches harder. Boom! Like it gets all the blood out. But when the heart rate gets very, very high for any reason, you punch it harder. You pay the price to punch it harder, meaning you can only do it for a reasonably short period of time. What doesn't happen is more blood get into the left ventricle, meaning it doesn't fill up. And you want the left ventricle, the outside of the heart, to become stronger in this eccentric activity. So think about this. If you were going to do a whole bunch of reps really fast, you do not have the opportunity to work on eccentric loading. The eccentrically loaded heart has the ability to fill up with more blood. And that's typically the heart that's healthy. Now, we can dance and find the heart that fills up. Like, so the best fighters in the world can do that. The best CrossFitters, the best ice hockey players, even the best of every sport can do a little bit of both. But if you're constantly in a high heart rate, you will never be able to develop the eccentric quality of the left ventricle. And that will tell you that, I think what's happening is that people are choosing their definition that fits their goal, which is not wrong, to lose body fat or change how their body looks naked in a mirror. That is not what I define as cardio. So we love beating up on medical doctors, which is right or wrong. Whatever. It's, I used to
certain ones.
beat up on everybody. Beat up on me. See how that works out for you. So you go to your 350 pound GP, and you're a fat mess, but you like lifting weights, and he tells you that you need to do some cardio. You only lift, and you're like, dude, I can bench 4 wheels. Like, I'm gonna be a power lifter. Like, and you don't feel fatigued, because in traditional training, if that's all you do over a long, long period of time, the inside of the left ventricle becomes very strong, not the outside. So the medical condition that you think is an idiot doctor just because he's a fat pig is called cardiac myohypertrophy. Now you can the bad way is when it gets bigger on the inside. So now the size of the chamber becomes smaller because you built muscle tissue in the heart to punch. The body adapted in the way that you trained it. But if it doesn't fill up as much, your conditioning, your ability to go longer will actually go down. You will have to rest longer because now, let's say 5 units of blood was coming out at every heart rate, but now because you've trained this way for a very, very long period of time, no one is in frank risk of this from training for a reasonable period of time. But the message is real because if you continue to train this way and never work on eccentric heart, you see, I don't talk in terms of aerobic, anaerobic, everything is everything. When we talk about the heart, it's concentric heart and eccentric heart. So if you never give the opportunity to build muscle on the outside of the heart, so that it's a stronger rubber band, it can fill up with more blood, and then another day, another time, you train it to punch, you're actually becoming cardiac unhealthy, and that is why you cannot achieve a cardio benefit for health by lifting heavy weights and looking at your heart rate monitor and being like, oh, my heart rate got up to 180, so I'm getting my cardio. That's asinine. That's false. The problem is that you'll lose weight, which is a very, very good thing, and so that's good. But you're not losing weight because of this cardio. You're losing weight because you're lifting weights, you're burning calories, you're doing other things. But to appreciate the difference, if your heart rate is constantly high, you don't have the opportunity to fill up more blood. Your stroke volume will be capped, or it could go down. But again, that takes a very long time for that adaptation to happen. Unfortunately, sometimes you could be born with a genetic predisposition of having a smaller left ventricle. You'll be challenged for those type of activities that last a long period of time. Now, when you said training fast a lot, because I don't know about this. I probably don't listen. If you're training fast with light weight, you're not lifting anymore. Like if you're training,
Right.
like you might be training for rate of force development, which I'm not sure is the Valhalla that is referenced. If you are banging it off of what we think we know about training connective tissue, that's a whole nother topic. But certainly training medium to light loads really, really fast, like Olympic lifting and jump training and all this is great, even for general population to a degree. As a risk reward mechanically, orthopedically, that maybe should be discussed. But if you're just moving with extra weight, but you can stay in the ranges that I referenced when we first started, that's not lifting for cardio. That's doing cardio because you are in such good condition. Here's an example. When I was at MARSOC, I hated to participate in these stupid events that they would be asked to do. And one of the things that we found was the guys would destroy me in a 5-mile run or a 20-mile ruck, which I would never even do. I refused. I said, no, I value my needs. Like, I'm not doing this. I don't need to know what you do. Because I understand science. And then we would talk like to help them understand. I said, now think about this. You crushed me in a 5 miles. If we all put on a 20-pound weight vest, you don't crush me as bad. You still beat me, but I closed the gap because 20 pounds to me is a lot less meaningful than 20 pounds to you. So so now, is that lifting? No, it just means that you challenged this energy system. I was less challenged to run 5 miles with 20 pounds extra because 20 pounds doesn't mean anything to me from my ability to carriage load.
Right.
So I have trained professional MMA fighters with a Friday program where you will use what will look like very, very junior weights, like the pink dumbbells that we like to joke at. Yes, you've seen me. I will use,
Hmm.
hopefully they're not pink, but they're less than 5 pounds for certain movements. You will do 20. You will get a list of movements, and you will put 20 minutes on the clock. And every move that you're going to do is 20 repetitions. And the only rest you get is to change the exercises. So if you do them all with kettlebells, you literally get no rest. So you do 20 minutes, which fits into the very, very short stages of what a lot of people call aerobic training. But because they are monsters, we're instead of doing an elliptical for 20 minutes, we're doing a very light kettlebell complex. We're not getting strong from 8 kilo kettlebells. You are forcing the body, because the moment you get into a high heart rate, you're done. You can't go 20 minutes. So you have to be humbled to choose light weights. That's not
Right.
lifting. That's not lifting for cardio. That's doing eccentric heart training with external load. That's not lifting. You can't get strong. You can't get fast. That is a conditioning session for people that are highly, highly trained. So basically, you have 1 or 2 kettlebells, and 20 minutes later, you put them down for the first time. I'm talking like the most I've ever used is 10 kilo, because again, I'm showing up to that dance much lower levels of eccentric heart ability as a professional athlete, but I'm also very strong. So it's an interesting comparison. That's not lifting for cardio. That's cardio with weights.
Right.
So those are my definitions, because I'll keep the heart rate low enough so I can work on eccentric heart, which is the healthy heart. People don't die from having a springy left ventricle. They do die from looking the part and having a complete inability, because we haven't even talked about the ability to recover within your workout, or even within your
Right.
set, like while you're doing your 10 swings. Because if rep 7, 8, and 9 is not as powerful as 1, 2, and 3, that means you're not recovered. You're not even fit enough to do explosive kettlebell swings for 10 reps. And that is the ability to use oxygen. Like that's so the ventricle is really where people should be trying to understand this. You want both, but it's way more important to have the blah, 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 blah.
And you set up the segue into what we'll talk about with the recovery and different protocols. But I think, what people can take away from that explanation is that they are better off doing a certain amount of eccentric heart work, or what they may think is, I guess the term steady state is probably the most understood. Having a good amount of aerobic conditioning under their belt will allow them to recover better in between sets, but also in between workouts, and just
Absolutely.
overall will allow them to perform better. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
popularity of doing exercises with a very high heart rate constantly is not necessarily going to get them to have that same ability that they would when they're doing things under a very, very low load, like you just explained, or
No, to get
maybe
destroyed.
other modalities. And so I think general public and, Gen Pop is, the ones that throw the term around cardio, they think going for a run or going for a long bike ride. But obviously, as you just mentioned, there's different ways that you can achieve this eccentric heart type of training, and they don't necessarily have to spend it on an elliptical or
Sure.
running if they don't want to. So
You
if you can
can.
give some
It's not bad.
examples, right,
So
it's not bad. Like, people do enjoy running, people do
the
enjoy riding a bike, but there are alternative ways that they can achieve the same
yeah.
thing and come to the same adaptation.
Look, again, we like to poke fun at some of these national organizations that seem to have archaic, models. But if you do a couple times a week, 30 minutes on the elliptical, like you'll probably achieve some very valuable cardiac output. Again, I'm focusing on the terminology eccentric heart, because
Right.
with that programming, let's just say 30 to 90 minutes, but you could go 8 hours. Like if you're doing 8 hours straight without on a bike ride, then you are primarily working on eccentric heart, because the bottom line is if your heart rate got to a certain point, you would stop riding your bike. You would stop the whether you believe in the central governor theory that began to be discussed from the Tim Noakes' research several years ago, or if you believe in the buildup of acidosis, which then limits muscle function over time. I mean, you can believe the Bohr effect. If you start breathing heavy, you're not gonna be able to extract oxygen from hemoglobin. There's a lot of reasons why if your heart rate goes up, you're not going to go for 8 hours. So you're primarily using this eccentric heart parameters. But if you do 30 to 90 minutes of anything, that keeps you in this particular heart rate range, then that is really the only thing you can work on. So now, if I set up a whole bunch of exercises and we basically only rest to change the exercise, so I've got your little boot camp, except this boot camp isn't, by the third round of the second exercise, you're, instead of throwing, you look like this when you're throwing a med ball, or you're on the air bike looking like this, you're
Like a
surviving.
salamander.
Yeah, you're surviving this training session. It has to be so easy in that regard, so that you can do it for 30 to 90 minutes, and it's like a warm up. So a lot of people that have this aversion to using their conditioning time for these types of things, they're actually getting it out of their warm up. If you do a very extensive warm up that we could learn from Mike Boyle, or where I learned way before that from Charlie Francis, where it looks like a whole workout, but you're just doing everything below 60, 70%, which also has other value depending on what you choose, for motor strategies, and you're basically practicing certain things. So you don't have to, is that lifting? No. Is that med ball training? It's just picking what you want. And now for a general population, well, no, you're right. You're not going to lose a ton of weight from only that training. But that type of training and a series of weeks or months of that focus, because you suck at it. How do you know if you suck at it? Let's just randomly pick something. I don't know that this is supported by the research, but if your resting heart rate is over 60, you suck. Okay, and you're allowed to suck. That's not a bad thing, because we'll unsuck you. Like you'll be fine. So you're going to primarily train your central heart mechanisms with that type of protocol, and you're going to go for a long period of time, so that when you start the next phase of training, where you do work on a little bit of concentric heart, you will have the ability to recover. Think of like when you get really tired and you start blowing off all this bicarbonate ion, and trigger this allostatic seesaw between sympathetic or I'm sorry, acidotic and basic bloodstream, which is why it's stupid to work on exhalation all the time. I have to get that in every time I talk to somebody. It's just dumb. It's completely contrary to science. So like, what are you doing? You're breathing heavy because you're searching for air. Well, if you were better at using air to begin with, you wouldn't have to search for air so much. So in subsequent training goals, after you have built up this evil, which is clearly not evil, aerobic base, which again is not a term that I use, but I'm going to use it because I think it's what people call.
Mm-hmm.
You're again, I don't call it aerobic base, but because everything is aerobic, if you do it for longer than 12 seconds, you're primarily you're primarily using aerobic system. So, or maybe whatever you want to, a minute, whatever time you want. I could rationalize why it's 12 seconds, but that's very important to appreciate, that you don't have to go for a long run. And running is stupid because the mechanical load is not worth the cardiovascular benefit. Now, if you're a monster and you're an elite endurance athlete, you should be going out for a run because that's the only way that you can tax that system. Or maybe they should just run with a sled and they would be able to have less mechanical load. But that's again, you see how there's so many different angles, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's my problem. Like I can't think of just one thing, but
Well,
I hope I'm simplifying it to the degree that you want me to.
so, and I think one of the things you mentioned is that basically, if somebody wants to use something that would traditionally be used in lifting weights, whether that be a kettlebell, a barbell, some dumbbells, you can absolutely, quote, do cardio with that. If you're doing it for 30 to 90 minutes, however, the load obviously is going to be what you would say a Pikachu kettlebell for most people, 3 to 5 pound weights, if that, because they have to be able to exert that same repeated effort for that amount of time.
You could look. This might be another layer of the conversation. Good form or bad form is not part of this because your heart doesn't know
Right.
the difference. Okay,
Correct.
so even if you're using uneven effort and you start getting into bad form, you, you're just not building muscle mass. You're not adapting to increased contractile elements. You're not improving rate of force development. You're not doing any
Right.
of those things because the load isn't taxing that system. That you're not striving for that adaptation when you use those low loads. Now, of course, there's protocols and training methods where you're greasing the groove and et cetera. Again, know the rules and then break the rules. You're going to use you're just doing cardio with resistance. Like that's
Right.
different than lifting weights for these contractile performance measures. But you need to do both, but they're just
Right.
not the same. They're not the same.
Yeah.
So it's because if you lift weights a lot and you whether you appreciate good form or not, you will probably lose weight. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where people are saying that is cardio. And they know it's wrong, but then they realize that their heart rate reads these high numbers. Oh, well, high heart rate equals cardio. Well, no, it doesn't. It is one form of cardio, and it is an extremely costly one.
Right.
So
Uh,
that's
That difference, I think, is important too, because again, with the educational curve of trainers thinking that cardio will make them weaker, fatter, they'll lose their gains from an aesthetic perspective. It's
come on.
actually quite the opposite, where you build mitochondria when you do aerobic work, and that allows you to eat more. That allows you to utilize the carbs and fats that you're actually eating. And as we mentioned, you recover quicker and all that. So say somebody says, all right, Charlie, I totally understand what you're saying. I need to do eccentric heart activities in addition to my weightlifting, that they're completely separate. I don't want to do elliptical. I don't want to do any of that. I go to a class that uses the assault bike and I go 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. Sometimes we go 15 seconds off. Would that be considered what you're talking about, or are there different protocols that are more efficient for what I'm trying to do?
Um, so those make believe random protocols that do not have any scientific evidence. Now, how do you judge that is up to you. There's no studies that says this is good. Okay, um, if you keep your heart rate in a certain range at the end of the day, then there's nothing wrong with those protocols. Like if you want to do 30 on, 30 off, and if you average out your heart rate at the end of 30 to 90 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 hours, whatever it is, and your heart rate is under your 80%, it should probably lower, like 70%, then that's the same as doing the whole way through. Like it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You would be working on eccentric heart. That would be the primary adaptation that you would be getting at. Now, I think we would agree that most people that do that in a commercial setting, whether it's a private gym or a big box gym, you are coached to bring the heat for 15 or 30 seconds, and then you rest to do whatever you feel like you want to do when you rest. and then you are coached again to bring the heat. That is clearly asinine. Like that would be that would be you'll use calories as long as you can, but here's what happens. 15 seconds is a little different, but even 15 seconds falls into a category that I don't know too many. There are some like highly trained athletes that if you put them into some activity, you're choosing a bike and it's different for everybody. They can, get a little, a little flying start, and they go this way for 15 seconds. And more importantly, it doesn't go this way. There's no human alive that can do 100% of their effort for 30 seconds. Okay. So 20 seconds. Yes, there's 20 seconds. And they, the ones that I'm most familiar with are 200-meter runners, because in a 200-meter, their split is the same. So they're going to run a 10-2 and a 10-2. So their activity is their skill. And really, if you're in the 200, you're really just not fast enough to run the 100. So that you get pushed into the 200. But their conditioning, their ability to, both centrally and peripherally, they're one. But 30 seconds, they cannot. If you take that 200-meter runner and ask them to run their best time for 30 seconds, it's going to go like this. 10, 20, is there going to be a drop off? Now, is that bad? No, because the sport said you had to run 30 seconds. But nobody's going to the gym for sport unless you're a competitive CrossFit. Like that's not what this is.
Right.
So within that period of time, it's not even humanly possible to maintain 100%, which is what they are being coached. You are capable of delivering 100% of your effort. And that was what I talked about a couple times before, where now on the first round, in 30 seconds, not possible. 15 seconds, likely not possible. We have shown many times that very few people actually understand what 100% effort on an air bike is, of any type. Most people can't even really do more than 6 seconds, 8 seconds at a very high, pace. Mm-hmm. They'll drop off. That being said, you also need a significant amount of time so that your next round is the same output. And no one's getting that. 15-15 is absurd. 30-30 the 30 is absurd, but do anything for maximal effort for 30 seconds, which you're no longer at max. So you can get an 8 and an 8 on 30 seconds, but you can't do 10. Like your 10 will be an 8.5 on the first round. And now if you don't rest for a period of time to allow, in that case, the peripheral mechanisms, the mitochondria, to recover, then your next round, you use a 10 effort, and now you're an 8. And then you're going to do a 10, and you'll do a 6. And the next thing you know, you're doing this, and you think it did good because you lost weight, but you have this incredibly high heart rate. You're not waiting long enough for it to come back down. Now, you're doing the same thing as lifting all the time. You're probably, for a period of time, going to see results in your body type because you're still using calories, and you're basically showing this elusive mental toughness, and you're going to break. Now, I would tell you, if you rested long enough so you could talk in a complete sentence, or if you rested long enough to do a predetermined complex math problem, or if you rested long enough so that if you closed your eyes, you saw what would be a 3.5 on the old Borg scale, all these different things that when the bell rang, then you would actually be able to do the next round at an extremely high intensity. You bring a 10 and you get a 10. So you have to choose a work interval that makes sense in the first place. And in my mind, it tops out at 12 seconds, depending on the person and depending on the modality. 15 seconds for rotary athletes, such as explosive rotary athletes, such as golfers, such as shot putters, hammer throwers, discus. It's all the same. Golf is just because they don't eat. You train a golfer and a shot putter, they could train together. they're just genetically different. I have seen elite golfers. Again, it's a long drive guy because they're more inclined to train like athletes rather than professional golfers. A rip trainer, where to my eye, at 15 seconds, it appeared to be very similar as 2 seconds. Now, we're not measuring it on the rip trainer, but I was very impressed. But then it made sense because just like the 200-meter runners, their skill is running. This man's skill was rotating explosively. So he was super efficient. So I'll give you 15 seconds for that population. But if you're going to take 12 seconds, I'm going to probably ask you to rest at least 48 seconds. And depending on what we do in that 12, 6 seconds, sometimes as low as 4 seconds, I still want you to go from 20 to 40 minutes. And the good news is that would be a protocol that would have significant evidence to either proliferate, make more, so now we're in the 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seconds, or improve the metabolic efficiency of the mitochondria. That's your 7, 6, 5, 4 work intervals. The mitochondria specifically in the sarcoplasm of type 2 fibers. So why is that important? Don't worry about the big words. That is where the calcium goes in and out of the cells. And if you have more mitochondria, where to allow the calcium in and out of the cells, you can contract and relax, meaning you can stop and start, which is what most sports are like. And then you'll take that to the general population. And you know that if you have all this rest, you're going to keep their form good. So that's the most important thing in general population in the grand scheme of things. I know we have to craft it a little bit differently. More importantly, you're going to get 20 to 40 minutes and you will be able, who doesn't want to look like a striker in soccer? Who doesn't want to look like a sprinter? Who doesn't want to look like an athletic, basketball player? I'm not talking about big hulking, individuals. So that is a great protocol and a very cheap protocol. And you can break down those minutes. Now you can go, it doesn't have to be 48 seconds. You just have to answer certain calls. And that would, now what are you going to call that? So you're going to watch Jason Zubak do the rip trainer for 15 seconds, but he'll probably rest for a minute 15. So he's doing something very, very glycolytic for 15 seconds. And then he's doing something completely aerobic for the better part of a minute 15. So which one is it? It doesn't matter. Right. Like it's a different way of communicating, and I'm not the only one that communicates this way. Again, I would probably suggest that Charlie Francis was the first person that a lot of people learned from, and I think it's kind of cool that I'm a surrogate, fall off the tree of Charlie Francis from my experience with a lot of people in Toronto. So now that's not the only protocol to improve adaptations related to mitochondria. It is from my information, of which I don't know everything, that is the best protocol to improve mitochondrial function or proliferation within the sarcoplasm of type 2 fibers. So now you're not going to get big and bulky. You're not going to gain mass because if you proliferate mitochondria, they have to take up space. You're going to get big giant quads if you bike for a long period of time at an intense rate. When we look at, it's always very, very impressive for me to see female fitness or bodybuilders have giant quads. Like, how did this happen? Well, because you'll use the stepper. Your warm up is always on this stepper. So now you are preferentially mechanically loading the quad. And you're doing it over a long, slow period of time. The resistance of that, what do you call? Is it a step mill? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Now you're probably much closer to a protocol that proliferates mitochondria in the muscle itself, not the sarcoplasm.
Right.
So there's those two would be competing. I don't know who would ever do both unless you were like a scientist, trying to understand these different protocols. But that's the peripheral side. So you will still get mitochondria from working eccentric heart. You will not have a high value of mitochondria for concentric heart. So now we have these other protocols that and lifting can improve type 1, hypertrophy. So if you lift relatively lightweight, very, very slowly, not the boot camp that we're talking about before. So we're talking 20 to 50%, and you have a tempo of 2 seconds, 3 seconds. You never stop. You will preferentially hypertrophy type 1 fibers. Type 1 fibers have a lot of mitochondria. So if you're not training explosively, now you wonder how are bodybuilders so big, but they're so weak? I trained, as you well know, I lived in LA for roughly 8 months a couple years ago. And the only person I ever saw squat or 4 wheels or bench 3 wheels was Mike O'Hearn. And I've been in a lot of places now, where there's some real bodybuilders, and there's no more guys bigger than the dudes in golds, and they're all weak as all get out. And that's because they train very, very slow repetitions, relatively lightweight. So if you're training relatively light but very, very slow, and you never stop, like you never lock out, you'll build hypertrophy of type 1s. But remember, type 1s don't turn you always into a big Hulk. Type 1s have more mitochondria than type 2s. You will likely do a very, very good job of supporting the next phase of training where you're going to use more type 2. Because muscles are both. Muscles are type 1 and type 2. They're not all one. I mean, I think that's another, I don't think the general population thinks about that, but I think, like your glutes are type 2 muscles. Like that's not it. Like there's plenty of type 1 fibers in your glute max. There's just not as many as there are ratio wise in your glute medius. So so there's other protocols that you would use. And if somebody relatively has a heart rate below 60, if somebody wanted to argue a different metric, you don't need as much of the eccentric heart training. You have proven that you are good enough. There's no reason you can't do more. You're fine.
Right.
Like a lower resting heart rate to a degree is recognized as a healthier heart. There's probably a point it doesn't need to get, more healthy, particularly if you're comfortable with the need to gain other things. But lifting relatively heavy weights and having a high heart rate is far more from total peripheral resistance than any cardiac impact. Like that's just you're not doing it long enough. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. People think cardio is fat loss, and if that's what they're saying, then yeah, you're just calling it something that I don't agree with. Go ahead, keep doing your thing if you're losing weight from lifting weight. Lifting weights is very important.
So before I ask you about some other protocols, hi, Bart. Bart asked, he's a client of ours, he said, what is the poor man's way to get individualized heart rate percentages? The age-based way, meaning the 220 minus your age, or testing lactate threshold or other options. So what do you have your clients do, Charlie?
If somebody's willing to do it, they just bring the heat. Just take
a Cooper's test or something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Bart, you unknowingly just asked for something upgraded in your program next phase.
I mean, there's more scientific ways than that, but
right.
Do a 5-mile bike test, and your goal is to finish it as fast as you can. And what's the highest heart rate you got? There's your max test. Now, you'll probably never reach the highest max that but you'll be close. And look, for a lot of people, 220 minus your age isn't terribly far off. Like it's probably not enough to say that it's correct. And I don't think it was ever supposed to be correct, but I think you could do a lot worse than 220 minus your age.
Yeah.
It's not the best.
So I know, like, a lot of people are like, okay. And I know, actually, I think it was like 5 years ago or whatever, when we were dating, you had me do sprints where I was doing like 8 seconds. I was playing around with like the 6 to 8 second range and then resting 52 to 54 seconds. And then I had more of an appreciation as to why that was warranted. But the biggest moment of like, whoa, was when we were using the hit mill, which if you guys have never used a hit mill,
Great, great piece of
it
equipment.
is it's a treadmill that's basically on a fixed incline, no motor. You're basically like it feels like you're going through quicksand, but it has handles on the sides that you can load with plates so that you're basically doing a farmer's carry walking up an incline on a treadmill that does not move
No,
unless you move.
it's not farmer. It's like a wheelbarrow because it's
Yeah,
fixed at the front. So
yeah, but they understand. Yeah, well, wheelbarrow, whatever. Um, Extremely hard. And so Charlie was like, I think it was like Christmas Day. You're like, we're gonna do 30 seconds off, 4 minutes rest.
that's a
Ah,
different protocol.
oh, but hold on, yeah. After the first round, you decided we all needed 5 minutes rest.
Yeah.
I cannot begin to tell you guys, you train people and maybe they do something for 30 seconds or so. Telling them to rest 4 to 5 minutes, they look at you like you have six heads. After you do something at the type of intensity like the hit mill, I wanted 10 minutes. Can you explain that protocol and why that type of rest at that length is needed? And what is that
All right.
called?
So if you're going to do something, well, what is it called? I'd call it highly glycolytic colon
Death?
a, colon aerobic. So that is an opportunity to work on concentric heart. So you're going to work on your top end. So like when I'm tweeting, that I'm doing 30 seconds on the air bike, and
Brian.
I'm getting it up to 30 miles per hour. What am I working on? While I am riding that fast, and I'm sure many member too. I mean, I could talk a little shit, and because I'm so short, I'm never going to have as high miles per hour as somebody else. But I don't suck at that. But I'm working on concentric heart, which is really just go time.
Mm-hmm.
This is your opportunity to go to bat. Like this is mental toughness. This is now. Are there? I am not highly trained in understanding and appreciating, buffering acidosis. Like, is that a real thing or is that really mental toughness? Whatever it is, I'm doing it. If you do, because that protocol could also go to 60 seconds. Now you
Right.
probably wouldn't be going as fast. When I feel like working on 60 seconds, I won't be going 30 miles per hour. I'll be going like 24 because I have to keep it the whole way so that my effort and my output are equal. So if I'm going to give you 100% effort for 60 seconds, I can't get out of the blocks like if I'm doing the other protocol, like for 4 seconds or 5 seconds. So now, why do you rest that long? Because the peripheral acidosis that you have developed, because concentric heart protocols, I keep saying, are costly. So part of the cost of doing something maximally explosive plus 30 to 80 seconds, you are contracting muscle and primarily using glycolytic energy systems. And the only way to do something fast and hard is to pay the price of this, just like when you have to recover. So if you keep the pace correct, you'll be able to do 30 seconds. That's what I said before. But now, is it 30 seconds and 30 seconds rest, or 30 seconds and in this case 240 seconds rest? Because I'm going to tell you, you need to go for 30 seconds like you're going to have rest at the end. Like you can't do 31. If you did that and then got 30 seconds rest, you can't even do the second round unless you're a monster to begin with. You're damn sure not doing 3. So why do you rest so long is to allow the body's opportunity to buffer the acidosis that has been developed, in that case, your legs, probably not as much in your arms. And so that you can, when the bell rings after 4 or 5 minutes, you can deliver the same output. It's not the heart rate. It's the peripheral recovery of when you use those high threshold energy systems. Now, again, it is probably important to recognize that, well, why is this really that important? If you do not recognize this and you do have someone that is mentally tough, you will then develop musculoskeletal soft tissue changes. Okay, that's that's a whole nother day, another time.
Yeah.
Acidosis and subsequent hypoxia that you do not recover from will lead to changes in the quality of soft tissue via what's called spontaneous electrical activity. So that's why this is all important from a train equals rehab approach. So it's like, well, I don't care. I just want to get work in and lose weight. Okay, well, you will be broken at some point. And as long as we're okay with that, have a go at it. I'm not going to sit there and watch you look awful on a hip mill.
Hmm.
So you need to rest that long. I think we're enough years out where I can tell this story, but I have told it publicly. When Daniel Bryan came back for WrestleMania, I think it was 2006, whatever it was. We in WrestleMania's end of March, April. We knew the storyline. We knew in October. We knew that this was going to happen, and I'm on a call with him and Jimmy. And bottom line was, is my time. Like I got to train Daniel Bryan, and the first. Now we needed to train in his house because if people saw him training, it would blow up the story. Even though wrestling doesn't really have a ton of kayfabe anymore, meaning people know what it is and what it isn't. Anyway, the first week of his training on day 2, he did 60 seconds on and 3 minutes off. That's like, you'll never get less than 3 minutes. I have started to try with myself going under 3 minutes for certain of these concentric heart protocols. And he's like, look, I can't really rest for 3 minutes. It's like, okay, because I probably want him to do 5 minutes rest. He's like, so we negotiated down to 3 minutes, and he did 2 rounds, 2 of 2. So I guess one series is 2, and then a long 15-minute rest. So it's like, yeah, go ahead, do your stretches, do whatever you want, but whatever. Like, you'll see what I mean. You're not gonna.
Can you explain what that means? Because I think that's confusing for people. What is the series and the 15 minutes? Just explain that layout.
So here's his program. So if we say 2x2, two series of 2, that's what that means. So he's going to go 30 seconds, rest for 3 minutes, go 30 seconds again. He's going to rest between 10 and 15 minutes, where you're not doing nothing. You know, if you do this right, you're not going to want to do something right away. But you can coast. You can do anything that doesn't challenge you. It's basically mobility, stretching, whatever, fast and loose, all good things. Then you do 30 seconds again, and then you rest 3 minutes, and then you finish with 30 seconds.
Okay.
So like 3 of 2 would be 3 rounds of 2. 2x3 would be 2 series of 3. So you do 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 30 seconds, 10 to 15 minutes. If this stuff is interesting, people ask me all the time, where's the course? Where's the book? I learned a combination from Val Nasetikin, the founder of Omega Wave, but the only course is Strong Endurance that Pavel teaches. The last time I messaged with him, I said that if he put Strong Endurance online, I would literally study it every day. So now,
well, you do read the book at night in bed, just so you know.
I've read it more than a couple of times. So and that's important. You don't have to learn everything from me. But I think pretty much everything that we're talking about, Pavel would. Now, this whole thought process includes some other components that Pavel doesn't talk about in Strong Endurance, but that's okay. You can please take his course. Pavel is brilliant, and it does not only apply to kettlebell. So getting back to Daniel Bryan, he did it. He did 60 seconds, rest 3 minutes. So he basically worked for 4 minutes. I believe after the last round, he fell off of the air nine. and that made enough of a sound that Bree, carrying Birdie, came downstairs to the gym to make sure that he was okay. I didn't get a phone call right then and there, but I did get a phone call, and I'm like, yeah, you probably did it right. Now, do you believe me because as an elite athlete, he did understand what 60 seconds was very, very quickly. Most people do not. And we've done that at Perform Better. We're going to do that on the new the T equals R systems mentorship you'll see some people that couldn't even, that they did, because they trained it for so long, they did understand what 60 seconds was. They couldn't even get out of the hole in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
They couldn't get round two
I was there.
because they worked so hard at their concentric heart that they did get it up for 60 seconds, but they couldn't recover, which is why the rest periods need to be that long. And if you don't, well, then you have no right claiming that you're getting to a 10. You might think you are, but you're not. For the shorter periods, people can do it. 15 seconds, yeah, somebody could run it out, even if they're really efficient, but you cannot come back again 15 seconds later. What you're basically doing is chopping up the long 8-mile run. Like, that's all you're doing. What we do here is now you are intelligently exposing yourself to concentric heart, which does have to happen, particularly in professional wrestling, but really any sport. You give the athlete or the individual an opportunity to bring the heat, because you probably will saturate energy stores faster. I mean, this is high intense training, so you're going to burn more fat. You're going to do more work in less time. So there's truth to all this. But if you don't take that amount of rest, the second time you work a 10 and you only get a 5, and you're an idiot. You're I mean, stop. Please stop. Like, that's not how this works. You can do 30-30 or 15-15. You just can't do it hard. It's not humanly possible.
Right.
You working hard doesn't mean you're getting everything that you're putting into it. And again, that's something, if you don't care, fine, but you'll be destroyed. And you'll be wasting your time. There's a way better way to do it.
And I think lastly, Brian Bott is on here watching, and you've been training him for a while, and I've been doing his nutrition. You now have him on a protocol that you term maximum aerobic speed, that I think
I don't term it. It's not my terminology.
Okay.
It's not my terminology.
That's what you're calling it. And I think on paper, people look at it and they're like, oh, I've seen this protocol before. You only do it for 4 minutes because it's 10 seconds on, 20 seconds rest. You can flip that. So can you go into why you have Brian doing this, and what is that? And why does that look like what people will see when they walk into their commercial gyms or training gyms?
Well, you won't see it in a commercial gym, unless somebody's doing it on their own, because you have to control it. Like, it's not just bust your ass and do it. Like, he has rules that he is supposed to follow here. So correct me if I'm wrong, but he's in a phase of training where he's cutting his calories. So yes. That's why we made the change. So instead of working on the concentric heart, where there was value for his goals prior to this phase, now his goals have slightly detoured, and we'll get back to it, because he wants to deadlift 600 pounds, which I believe he has done in the past, and also run a 6-minute mile at the same time. So I'm like, well, this is not ridiculous, because he's close enough. Now, if you take somebody who's a 200-pound deadlifter, this isn't going to happen. So.
Hey, Josh.
So the high costs of his running, preparation for the mile, we had to do away with because his calories were going down. So how do we still get our running in? How do we still get this high value, but keep him in lower time, lower work periods, and keep him in a much lower cost energy system? So the most important thing in the terminology of max aerobic speed is that it's aerobic, meaning you are primarily using aerobic systems based on the rules of developing these times, okay? And he loves busting my balls, for FMS, but Mladen Jovanovic, if that's his name, so I'm busting his balls if I don't say his name right, is somebody that because I'm the fellow who did the most research. I don't care for him, so I'm not going to promote him. But he did Mladen, learn it from Mladen, learn it from others. What you do is you choose a test similar to what we looked at for max heart rate, where you are looking to cover a certain amount of ground in the modality that you're going to use. So if you're going to run, you have to do a run test. If you're going to bike, you have to do a bike test. The research is mostly done in running. It can work for anything that you have a distance. Okay, so when you have the time and the distance, because you did it for a long period of time, you're primarily using the aerobic system. So as long as you can finish the line, I don't care if you stop, I don't care if you walk. I need the time in 5 minutes, or if you're going to set a distance, like how long did it take? Because then you're going to be able to determine a speed. That's your maximal aerobic speed. So how if you went I'm not going to do the math, but like if you do 2 miles and it takes you 3 minutes, that means you're a monster. But you're gonna come up with a miles per hour. And because it was 2 miles, it had to be aerobic as your primary energy system, even though you're using everything. So now you take that number, and based on the intervals that you choose, you're going to use a percentage of your maximum aerobic speed. So the assumption is that when you get into these protocols, you are always living around your VO2 max. So if you're at your maximal oxygen consumption place, well, then you are primarily using low threshold systems, and you will be able to bring it, and you'll be able to burn calories, and you will be able to come back the next day. You'll come back the next rep. You know, we will increase his volume as he can tolerate, and we have a plan, but we'll always deviate if we need to. But he had to do the test in week 1, and then we set his protocols based on a percentage. So he'll go for 10 seconds and then rest for 20, and then he'll do that 8 times, and then I have him resting until his heart rate comes back down to 110, and then he goes again. And then there's a different percentage of maximum aerobic speed if he goes for 20 seconds and then rests for 10. Now, when you referenced before, just because you're doing something for 20 seconds and then not doing something for 10 seconds, that doesn't make it a Tabata, okay? Like that's, again, just absolutely ridiculous. The Tabata protocol, which was 20 seconds of work followed by 10 seconds of rest, was at 180% of your VO2. That would put most people in a category of you have no idea what that is.
And I think Alan Cosgrove talks a lot about that too.
We should all be talking about it because there's no reason to call it a Tabata. Just call it 2010. Like no one would ever know. Like it's not like, oh my God, it's Tabata. Like that has some kind of, because
I'm doing Tabatas.
Like no, we're just doing 2010s. Just say that. Because you're allowed, because when Brian is doing 2010, he is not anywhere near 180%. He's actually at 110%. And if I'm wrong on the numbers, whatever, I'm training him. I can do whatever I want. But we're applying the concepts to then primarily use lower threshold energy systems that have a lower cost, very different than the Daniel Bryan story, or even what Bryan was doing previously for his concentric heart work.
Right.
And there's other uses for 2010 as well. It's around, it gets you to 30 seconds, which is very easy to program, particularly in a Western environment where time is, like workouts have to happen in an hour. Now, I don't think Brian's in that place, but most of us, oh yeah, I have an hour to train, or yeah, I pay for an hour of my trainer's time. Like in other places, this is not common. It's just in America or probably Canada, where a training session has to be an hour. So 30 seconds makes this somewhat more palatable to put together. And remember too, in that 10 seconds of rest, they were coasting on states. Right. They weren't even resting. They were coasting. So there was still some action there. So yeah, it's not a Tabata. Like no one's doing a Tabata. No one. No,
You mean there's not a such thing as like Tabata push-ups and like Tabata squats?
it's not possible. Forget about the rest. Even if you just laid on your back for 10 seconds, if you actually did something full speed, you would, it doesn't, it only works because they could coast,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's so, I don't know.
So I think to summarize, if somebody wanted to try a protocol that would align with their probably most likely aesthetic goals would be the general um, goal for people listening. They can start playing with something that takes them 10 to 12 seconds and then
Less,
they
less, less, less,
or
less.
or less, and then play with the rest of what a minute would be as their rest. So if they want to do, a kettlebell swing, maybe do 5 swings because that would be less than 10 seconds or so, and then rest for 52 or 50 minutes, or sorry, 50 seconds, and do that for at least 20 to 40 minutes.
Oh yeah, you'll come out ahead every day and look the part, particularly if you use kettlebell swings.
What are some other exercises, because somebody will ask, what else can I do for
Well, you
8 to 10 seconds?
so you have to, you can, it's not a, motherfucker, it's not, it's none of this is, I don't think in those levels
But those are the questions we're going to get.
okay, okay. Um, give me the, okay, number one, you should be choosing a exercise that flatters your movement profile. So if your FMS says that your shoulders, don't have a, you shouldn't expect to do well with exercises overhead, don't do the Versa Climber. All right. So that's what it starts with. Like if your knee hurts, don't sprint. Okay. Like this is, now the next step is that you have to understand that if you're going to do something for 6 seconds, you can't do it for 7. So
Right.
this is called an explosive cyclic repeat. So there's no lifts. Like, could you do push-ups? Yeah, because the rest at the bottom and top is if you do it small enough. Yeah, there are savages that can do pull-ups like this, but most of the time you're gonna have to take a cardio piece of equipment. The only elliptical that I know of where this works is the Cybex Arc Trainer. I don't get paid by them. It is the one of the, it's basically as many places I've been, it's the only elliptical you can basically bring it.
Mm-hmm.
Now for each person and each activity, the time is going to be a little bit different. So for ropes, somebody could work hard for 10 seconds, but you're going to get a degrade.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to pick something where you have even effort across this time period. And it might take a little bit of trial and error. Kettlebell is the best because kettlebell, you don't even have to worry about the time. You're just going to do either 5 reps of a swing, a clean, or a snatch, or 10 reps. And if you do 5 reps and then rest for the minute, that's like the easiest one. If you did that every day, you would probably be achieving a lot of things in terms of deposition of mitochondria, or at least the improvement of mitochondria in the periphery. I don't know that you'd be getting a lot of eccentric heart action. You would be in the right place, but I don't know that you would be there long enough, because when you do something for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, you don't get high enough, so the heart rate doesn't really apply to these things.
Right.
If it does, it's just a commentary of how your heart functions. Versa climber, ropes, the Marpo. We did that with John Wall
Mm-hmm.
while he was recovering from his Achilles, and obviously came back brilliantly with some really great work from the folks at the Wizards. Um, where they allowed me to put all this stuff in for him. Um, you name it. Like obviously
Yeah.
sprinting works. If you can get up to, if you're going to sprint for 4 seconds, rest for 56, and you can get past 15 minutes, you're a motherfucker. Like you can do something. That's special. 5, 6 seconds. I don't even think NFL receivers can do that.
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Um,
Um,
no, I think those are some great points.
it's like, can it be
Kettlebell,
explosive? It has to be explosive. It can't be just you working hard.
right.
It has to be explosive and cyclic repeat. So you can't do like Olympic lift. Clearly, Olympic lift is explosive, but you can't do them over and over again because there's
Yeah.
too long of a period in between the rep to the next.
If you've ever watched Charlie do kettlebell swings, it's pretty scary. And our friend Greg Dumanoir, he asked me, but I think it's actually a question that you get quite often is the appropriate load, because I do think people go a little too heavy
Yeah.
when you think five
Yeah,
to
yeah,
ten
yeah.
swings.
So if your kettlebell swing technique is good, as determined, by somebody qualified, which unfortunately is not always the people you think, um, you will choose a kettlebell weight that is 20 to 30% of your load, of your weight. You like, what do you weigh? You're going to pick 20 to 30%. This was unpublished research on force plates that if you chose roughly, close to 25%. So if you're a 200-pound man and you're using a 24 kilo kettlebell, you're in that range. You could generate upwards of 800 pounds through the force plate. Now that doesn't mean you can deadlift 800 pounds. That's the amount of force you're generating, and clearly it's a different contractile situation. So it's not saying that, but you would regularly score between 600 and 800 pounds. So basically, using a heavier kettlebell is not the answer, and clearly too light of a kettlebell is not the answer. So
Yeah.
for me, I would still, for that protocol, I would use a 24. Now, if that's not your angle, then use a kettlebell that you can sprint, like meaning overspeed, for 20 reps. Use that weight. Where for me, one arm technique is very, very different than two arm based on what I'm good at and not good at. So I would use actually a 14 or a 16 for my one arm stuff.
Cool. All right. So in summary, guys, can lifting be used for cardio? Probably not in the context that you are thinking. You can, however, do cardio with external resistance, which is using extremely light loads, going for 30 to 90 minutes, blah, blah, blah. Listen to this from the beginning. Charlie goes into an extreme explanation of everything. So if people want to learn more about this, especially coaches, if they really want to have a grasp of how you implement this in somebody's training program and what you exactly do, you've got some programs coming out, right?
Oh, this is my time to market shit.
Yeah.
So over the next couple of days,
We have a wedding coming up, so come on.
I think we're good on that. Um, the teaser trailers are already done, and what I will be doing is setting up. I haven't been able to think of a better word, so we're going to call it a mentorship. I think it's only going to be 10 people, and there'll be a series of things that I will be doing in exchange for what I will be asking for financially. And basically, I am going to be on your team, whether it's your business, if it's a sports team, confidentiality will be kept. You're going to tap into everything that you might think that I can help you with, which is not only training, but certainly rehab. Again, I love saying, I hate saying what I am, but there's still a lot of people that don't even know that I'm a physical therapist, or don't even
Mm-hmm.
know that I'm a strength coach. And mind you, I had to slide it in a couple times. Everything that I talked about tracks back to changes in motor strategy that lead to further adaptations of inefficient movement and injury. This is how you're supposed to train so you don't get injured. This is how you're supposed to train during a period of rehab or recovery. But business, a couple years ago, it was kind of cool. Somebody thought that, in his opinion, as a business person that had nothing to do with our profession, he was investing in a physical therapy outfit that has since not done very well. Um, he said, I am the highest paid physical therapist in the world based on the amount that I work. So I don't own 30 clinics, so I'm not making as much as those people. But I have learned some significant business strategies simply from the people that I work with and having them on my table. So there's going to be a lot of business mentorship. People will be able to tap in both private and group sessions. And now, additionally, there will be content on the website that only these 10 people will get. And everything that we talked about will be on there, where everything that we just talked about will be the primary focus of this exclusive content that only people that sign up for the mentorship will receive. So the website will be everything for free, and I promise I will get back to content. There's been some reasons, some people know, some people don't. I have not felt comfortable, just being in front of people simply because I haven't felt that I am who I'm supposed to be, and I'll get over it. But that's the reason, and so we're going to continue that. That will always be free. If you're in the mentorship, everything that we have that is on T equals R plus streaming platform will be included. I'm guessing most of those people have already bought it. So anything that we put into that second tier, which we will continue to develop content at that level, that will be included as long as you are a member of the mentorship, where there'll be exclusive content as well as access to me. So that's the first time I have described it publicly, and I'm sure this will get chopped up, and that will be the first promo for that, and obviously now the cat's out of the bag. Over the next day or two, I will push out the video that will be very, very consistent with what we did many years ago with the teaser trailers for T equals R. When I tell George what I'm looking for, it will have a very professional wrestling promo feel to it, and because a zebra doesn't change its stripes. And if you think that there's somebody that you want to have support you, I would like you to think that I would be a pretty good person. And if not, then good luck.
So people just to get more information about applying, they'll wait to see your launch of these trailers.
Yeah, we're gonna put it out there a little bit, and then there will be a mild application process because I can't help everybody, and we'll see how this goes. Obviously, a lot of other people do certain things like this, and I'm gonna do it better, and that's just how it goes.
Do I have to apply?
No.
Awesome.
No.
Aww. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in for this long. I think this was awesome. This will be posted on both of our Instagram pages for you to rewatch and please share, as well as both of our YouTube channels. So, hey, Charlie, I'll see you in a few minutes.
That was actually funny.
Oh, wow. Anyway. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good night.